playing with confidence. Surges it inside 50.
Inside 50, good hands.
Drilling it into centre half forward. That was end-to-end football at its best.
Back-to-back goals either side of quarter time.
Put it down with the Bulldogs!
I'd find somebody for you. There ain't no wall I would run through. In your corner when we're ringing the bell. Come hell or high water. I'd find somebody for you.
G'day WAFL fans, welcome one and all to another Monday night edition of Around the WAFL as we get to the business end of the season, not least of which the WAFLW with the home and away games now but a distant memory. Now we hit the finals. On tonight's recap show, we'll recap the final round of the ATCO WAFLW Premiership. We'll chat with Swan District's coach Jason Burton, coach of the minor premiers for 2025. Plus, in just a few moments, we'll be talking to West Coast Eagles coach Kyal Horsley on their great win over the reigning premiers yesterday at Mineral Resources Park. Plus, Player of the Year votes and, of course, a recap of all the great action, as well as something cool for the WAFLW Finals Series coming up that we'll tell you toward the end of our show. It's all thanks to Grants Car Stereo, District Promotions, Sullivan Logistics, and Front Row Screen Sport. And as always on a Monday night alongside me, I've got the rock and roll and Ethan Roth who's alongside me. Rothy, what a weekend.
G'day, Paul. Yeah, what a weekend indeed. Obviously, WAFLW Finals now locked in for the matchups and another round of the WAFL as well. So, looking at the ladder, it's very tightened up as well.
Yeah,
so, a few 8-point games perhaps this weekend.
Yeah, there certainly has been, and ones that could decide where the final five could be heading in the Sullivan Logistics WAFL Premiership season. And, of course, with the WAFLW Final Series locked in, we can tell you, while we're on that, we can tell you that the WAFLW Final Series first week has been locked in as far as dates and times. Both the first week of the finals will be on Sunday, and that will start with the major semi-final at Steel Blue Oval at 11:45 on Sunday morning, 11:45, and then just about 25-30 minutes later at 12:10 at the Good Grocer Park on the Sunday, East Fremantle will take on South Fremantle in the sudden death first semi-final. So Sunday is WAFLW Finals Day. It's going to be an exciting one.
Yeah, always a busy month, and obviously double chance for both Swans and Claremont. Many would think it's going to be a grand final rematch, but obviously Derby elimination final puts East Fremantle and South Fremantle into the thick of things as well.
We can't wait for it.
Great.
It's going to be a great day on Sunday, so make sure you keep your eyes and ears peeled on our socials, Facebook and Instagram, because we've got something real cool lined up toward the end of the show, which we're going to tell you about. Let's get into business, Rothy, and of course our fans, to get to our first guest of the night. And the West Coast Eagles, well, haven't they had a great season so far? They've really made big strides in their improvement, not just in the way they play, but also the way they've believed in themselves to have a chance of making the five. They have been able to beat sides at both ends of the ladder. West Perth in recent weeks, Claremont at Revo Fitness Stadium, and then just yesterday, they had their second win over the reigning premiers South Fremantle in the space of 2 years. This time in great style yesterday, thanks to a big second quarter, and their coaches really played a significant role on the rise and development of this Eagles WAFL squad. His name's Kyal Horsley, and he joins us here this evening on Around the WAFL. Kyal, g'day, mate, and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the show. Do you feel yesterday's win was a statement, not just to yourself, but also to the players that, with the competitiveness that you have shown this year, that you really can cause a couple of surprises, especially for those in the five, if you do make it?
I don't know if it was a statement, but we've sort of been playing that way for the whole year. Our best footy is at a really high level, but unfortunately, when we're off our game, we get scored against heavily. So we sort of know what our best looks like. It's just with young groups, getting the consistency to create it for 4 quarters has been a challenge. But we've had some really nice wins, and then obviously some pretty tough losses along the way too.
And as seen every year, you have draftees that come in for year number one. A player who hasn't even been drafted yet, but it's come into your lineup last couple of weeks, is Harper Banfield, who's really adapted well to league footy, kicked a critical goal just before half time. I believe you're going to lose him because obviously he'll go back to Claremont and PSA commitments, but must be wrapped for a player to come in like that before they're draft eligible and impact at league footy.
Yeah, I think it's probably undersold what the step-up's like. So for him to come in, the whole new team, really, he trained a little bit over the summer, but for the majority of the group, he didn't really know. But if you met the young man, he embraced it. He puts himself out there. I've no doubt he was really anxious and nervous, but you can't tell with the way he carried himself and his performance in the back of it. I think the first game we played him on the wing. Then I found out he actually hadn't played in the wing before, but against West Perth, I thought, he was one of our best players. And then he played inside mid in his natural habitat in the weekend, and against a really strong midfield in South Freo. He didn't look out of place at all and had some great moments. So, he's got a bright future ahead.
And I saw that game yesterday, and Harper Banfield, he really has played his role to perfection in the last 2 weeks and showed that he's quite a very versatile young man. Wherever you put him, he's really lived up to that role. There was one downside for that win on Sunday. Thomas Edwards-Baldwin, he was carried off the ground early in the game. What's the latest there?
No, I haven't got a report back yet. He played out the game, so I'm pretty confident he'll be okay, but he's getting a bit older, but he's really important to us. Just his contest work, his leadership, and he's obviously a high-level WAFL player, so he's a big part of our plan. But hopefully, he's escaped serious injury, and I am pretty confident with the fact he played out the game. But if it worse, it might be 1 weaker, but fingers crossed he's all good.
And that was a silver lining, wasn't it? He did play out the full game, which was a relief to the Eagles fans after that scare in the first quarter. The way you won against South Fremantle, you really made the Bulldogs pay for their inaccuracy in front of goal. Just the way you played the ball out of half-back and you run and carry through the corridor. That's what really stood out to me and many that were talking about the game afterwards. Was the run and carry part of your game a necessity against South Fremantle, who like to apply the same approach themselves?
It's part of what Minnie's brought into West Coast with, it's the old Richmond, part of the Richmond model, a little bit of what Melbourne are doing, more free-flowing football from your back half, and how you set the ground up allows you to really slingshot. Like, ideally, you're not playing from your back half. Ideally, you can win clearance, get territory and lock it in, but against quality teams like South and in the WAFL, and especially in the AFL, you've got to learn other ways to get out and to score, and so you can really see the players implementing it. They're still learning it. Like we're 2 years into, or not even 2 years now, into a new system. So they've still got a lot of growth in it, but you can see, the bang for buck you get. I think 100 points against South Australia's defence, which has been so miserly over the last 2 years, is really impressive.
And Subiaco this week, club is obviously very close to your heart, both on 32 premiership points, obviously a couple of weeks to follow after that as well. So, you're still going to be in the hunt. But do you build this game up anything more than usual? Obviously, 8-point game gets thrown around a little bit, but if you win this, obviously a step closer to the 5 for your team?
No, you don't build them up anymore. There's enough anxiety in the game that you don't want to start really pumping 8-point games and finals. You just focus on Subi, what their strengths are, areas you can exploit, key matchups, and then what our strengths look like against it, and let the boys go to work. So we got them early in the year, but they were very early on into Jared's new system, and I know they were watching their last few games. They progressed really well. They've been undermanned and found a way to win, and you can just see that that mentality that Scully had when I was playing there is really rubbing off with the group now. So they're a really big challenge. Hopefully we can produce our best and get the win and see what happens at the back end of the year.
And one more, mate, before we let you go. Malachi Champion came back to the side after injury, kicked a couple of goals. He really shows that, when he's at his best, he can be that added spark in that forward line. Do you think he's going to be playing as that key forward for the remainder of the year, or maybe a little bit more in midfield? Because when he's got the ball in his hand at times, he's really produced some great pace up the middle.
Yeah. He's got some really, really high-end attributes, and hopefully gets another chance at AFL. Like, I think he was pretty close before the injury, and now he's back. Like, a lot of resilience. He's probably back a week earlier than he should have been, but he was just really keen to play and to prove himself. So he's got that toughness about him, and when he does have ball in hand, good things happen. So he's a pleasure to coach.
It's been a pleasure having you on here tonight, Kyal Horsley. Congrats on the win, and all the best against Subiaco on Saturday. It's going to be a big one.
Thanks, Kyal.
Thank you, James. I appreciate it, and thanks for your support of the WAFL.
That was Kyal Horsley, the West Coast Eagles coach, joining us here on Around the WAFL, and really spoke at true heart about, that game coming up against the Lions, didn't he? Not really liking to pump up that 8-point game theory, and he's just taking it 1 week at a time, as any coach would expect, especially at this time of the year. Yeah,
and obviously wasn't expecting him to say it there, but I think you look at their draw to come, West Coast. They've got Claremont and Peel Thunder in the next 2 games, so they really want to chip in and bank a win here and go all chips in, because it could be really critical. It could be the difference potentially between a top 5 spot and not. Even though we know with the Eagles they're all about development and a higher purpose than than the WAFL side. But, to make the finals for the first time since 2019 is something that you still want to strive for as well.
I don't think they'll be making up the numbers if they make the 5. That might cause a little bit of stir amongst the traditional WAFL fans and those that, still not convinced by the Eagles concept. But I think they won't be just making up the numbers if they make the 5, because they've got a really good system in place. Year 2 under the Kyal Horsley regime, and the second year is a lot better than the first year at the moment. And this could build into an even stronger third year next year.
And you wouldn't want to come up against them in a final because obviously the West Coast AFL team aren't making finals. So their availability, pending no further injuries to key players, is going to be through the roof, you would imagine.
It certainly will, and I think that could cause a lot of conjecture around the WAFL, and especially with the traditional WAFL clubs that are still fighting for that spot in the 5 and those currently in the 5 right now. But that story for another time. We'll clear a break, and when we do come back, we'll recap all the big action from Saturday and Sunday, the Sullivan Logistics WAFL Premiership season. And what a big round it certainly was, with an absolute thriller down at Leederville and a couple of very interesting games at Claremont and at the Good Grocer Park. Stay where you are. More to come after this.
Take it from me, great things happen at the WAFL.
Valentine Roads and goals.
With free entry for kids, future stars on the ground, and a kick to kick at every break. The WAFL is where footy memories start and legends are made. Follow the WAFL on socials or get to a game.
Hey Siri, how to connect Bluetooth to Mac truck?
Sullivan 2, what's your position?
Just a midfielder, mate.
On your left. Oh, come on, get out of the way.
Car Stereo Morley, proudly supplying and fitting quality car stereos for over 15 years, selling top name brands like Alpine, Focal, Rockford Fosgate. From a simple upgrade to complete custom systems, stop in and see Grant and the boys at 61 Russell Street, Morley, or visit us online at carstereo.com.au.
Back with us here on Around the WAFL, your go-to WAFL podcast in season 2026. Paul Persick and Ethan Roth with you. Of course, you're on YouTube and where you get your podcasts, anytime, any place, anywhere. Stick around because later on we have got full WAFLW recap, final round of the season, and a look ahead to the finals series coming up. And Jason Burton, the Swan Districts coach, will be joining us off the back of their minor premiership and also looking ahead to that huge game against Claremont on Sunday, the second semi-final at Bassendean. But let's go and recap all the round 17 action, Rothy, from the weekend. We'll start off with what was a very good contest between Swan Districts and Peel Thunder for the most part. It was very tight. Only a goal separated the two teams at three-quarter time. Swans really took the challenge to the 2024 premiers, but just the class and the fitness of the professional AFL level players and the locals like Lockie Tardrew really stood up in the final quarter. A 7-0 final term, paving the way for a 42-point victory.
Yeah, it was a 4-quarter performance by the latter leaders, and Swans were able to match it with them for the best part of a half, but Peel Thunder showed their class from there, and as you said, 7 goals to none in that last quarter. A single point is all Swans could muster up. So, in a way, it's been the tale of Swans recent weeks, if not year, because obviously the South Fremantle game as well, they're able to go with other teams for the best part of a game, but last quarter they run out of legs and the other team gets on top, and that was another example of it here.
I might be a bit harsh, but I don't think that was Peel's most convincing win. In the 4-quarter game, I'd have to disagree because Swans did challenge and they were able to get a run of goals during that third quarter when the game was just getting away from Swan Districts and their work in the midfield. And to consider this, they were without Jesse Turner for that game, but the way they put in that third quarter to get themselves back into the game through the likes of Cipro, who had 23, Urseg down the back line, who plucked 10 marks from the airspace, True, Pina, and of course Brad Lynch from the back line. I thought they really worked hard. So not really a convincing performance in the end by Peel, and especially with Sharp getting tagged again, this time to just 8 disposals. I think there needs to be a bit of a plan to really make Sharp escape that tag because he's been well held for the last couple of games. Having said that, the way Peel finished off in the last quarter really made up for a lacklustre third term, especially through Toby Wan, who was magnificent. Shout out to Mark Foreman on a great call, by the way, early on in the game. Tregenza with 3 goals and Hewitt with 2. So you would think Peel got the win, but one concern, they want to avoid the Jeremy Sharp tag.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks, and obviously you never really used to seeing Jeremy Sharp get 8 disposals, but I think it's his set such lofty standards for himself as well. So I guess you've got to take the best of both worlds there. He's probably the standard of a medal favourite and could run away with that award. So, yeah, obviously a couple of down weeks, and credit to the likes of Bright for shutting him down this week, as well as Marlon Corbett recently. But I think the thing is that if Jeremy Sharp doesn't get you, multiple other players can. I thought Toby Wine was probably his best game, over 30 disposals, showing why he ended up being drafted last year as an NGA prospect. And I think the thing about Peel is, okay, might not have been a total complete, four-quarter performance, but when they aren't at their best, they still score a goal for a quarter. I know it might not seem like a lot, but they're still, I guess, doing enough to score goals. And
it's their engine room depth, isn't it? It's their engine room depth that is still doing enough. If one goes down, the others, they step up. And, you talked about Sharp, Wan, and Bailey Banfield, who had 6 inside 50s. So it's a testament to what Peel Thunder have got and developed as, a very good engine room. And they're firing on all cylinders, which, as it turned out, got them 11 wins in a row.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm trying to say is, the gap between their best and worst isn't as bad as other teams.
Oh, no.
And I think that's probably where they're being able to separate themselves at the top of the ladder at the moment and are looking pretty likely to take away the minor premiership as done with the AFL side as well.
Absolutely. It's looking very good for Peel Thunder at the moment, but they were challenged by a gallant Swan District side who, they ran out of gas in the end, but a full credit to them. Their engine room really took it right up to Peel for at least 3 quarters, and they held Peel to just 5 goals in that first half, which I thought was a pretty good effort in itself. Peel Thunder's forward line usually more potent at that time in the game, but the likes of Lynch, Urseg, Cotalesa, and Leo Steed, who had 6 marks. He played a bit of half-back as well. They really played their role very well, and despite the margin, I think the margin wouldn't be very flattering to Peel, but would be more for Swan Districts for the way they remain competitive. And I think Andrew Pruner would be largely pleased with the effort that they did put in for 3 quarters. Just the 4th quarter let them down again.
Yeah, they've got to find some glimpses of hope towards this back end of the season. Obviously off the cards in terms of a flag pursuit, but I think they've got to find these positives, keep blooding young players, and they can still put in some positive performances and competitive ones.
Yes, Peel Thunder by 42 points at Steel Blue Oval in the early starting game. And now we go to Claremont and West Perth at Revo Fitness Stadium. And after 4 straight home losses, Claremont, they turned on the firepower against a very gallant West Perth by 23 points, 13-12-90 to 10-7-67. And while there was talk about Ashley Prescott having to reorganise the forward line with Jaden Hunter out for the season, they still have got some great weapons inside 50. Waterman 4 and Sam Van Rooyen bobbed up with a big bag of 4 as well.
Yeah, he's really arrived on the league stage, hasn't he? Grabbing his opportunity with both hands.
Played in reserves the week before.
Yeah, and Benji, obviously his brother, playing reserves footy as well. So the family's doing very well at Tigerland all round. And yeah, bag of 4, obviously Alec Waterman back to some of his best footy. West Perth had their moments, didn't they? I don't think they lost too many admirers. You mentioned Claremont Hoodoo at home in recent times, but they're still a tough place to go and win at, and West Perth didn't do that in the end, but thought Tyler Keitel wound back the clock and showed that he's got more string to his bow. That we already knew that, but 31 disposals don't
played in the midfield. That really took us by surprise, and that allowed more young forwards to get that opportunity. And Keegan Knott, he played more freely, didn't he? I won't say that he's being restricted as a forward by the over-reliance on Tyler Keitel, but when you put Keitel into that midfield, you give the forward line a little more mobility. And I'm not saying that Keitel's not mobile, but the fact that he got into the middle and got 31 disposals really tells how versatile Keitel really is, more than what we may think.
Yeah, and it just shows no matter what stage of your career, you can try things, and it would have probably caught Claremont off guard a little bit in the end, but for their sake, obviously didn't come back to bite them enough.
Bailey Rogers, 28 disposals in that win for the Tigers, took 12 great marks. Since coming back, he's been battling Achilles problems and calf problems this season, but he still gets the work done. He's the workhorse of the Claremont Football Club, and he might be picking up a couple of Sandover votes later in the year, to some of his teammates' surprise, because since he's come back, he's really elevated his game. He's become more of a marking machine now. He's got 12 marks to go with his 28. His inside 50 delivery was very good, combining with Declan Mountford. And he links up so well with Ollie Eastland and Jack Musica. Their engine room is just firing. It makes up for the loss of Hunter up in the forward line, I'd say.
Yeah, throw Alvarez into that mix as well. He was he gave good support as well, and he's become one of the most underrated players. And I think for so long we associated Claremont to the big three of Bolton, Rogers, and England, which obviously two of them are still there and doing their thing. But I think
England didn't play, obviously, but one was only there today.
It's that next brigade of players coming up, the lesser names, Alvarez and Elliott. And they've been doing it for a while, to be fair, but taking that next step. And, for Claremont, they got the win that they needed in the end. And I guess for Tyler Keitel, should mention Harvey Sporting Guy, 2 goals in his second game of footy. That allows for a key target for Keitel to be freed up a bit. And Sporting Guy is certainly putting his drive credentials up a notch week by the week.
Absolutely, and AFL recruiters could be looking out for him in the end of the year, says Sporting Guy. 4 goals in his first couple of league games. So Paul Sanzoni, to his credit, as well as the West Perth coaching staff, have found a great new target. But Claremont, they just keep finding those 4 points at home, and they got it in good style too. 23 points in the end over West Perth, and that allows them to keep second place on the ladder. Let's go now to the game at Sullivan Logistics Stadium. Gee, wasn't this one full of twists and turns between Subiaco and Perth? Subiaco scoreless in the first quarter. Then they kick 4 goals to 3 in a frenzy third term, and the Lions go on and win by a point. You could not ask for a more dramatic finish to a game than that. Subiaco, they've still got that belief they can still make the 5, and Perth, gee, how can they blow that up? I want to start by, I don't usually like to go on a tyrant. That is not the new Perth I came to see against Claremont in round 10. They have a greater capacity to not throw away games. They threw away that game, and I hope they can get their proverbial together against Pure Thunder. And you've been right on this all along to an extent about their consistency or lack of it against some sides. If I was Perth, I'd be going through a hard week under Mark Stone. Stone would not be happy at all with the way they gave up that game.
Yeah, they've taken step forwards. There's no doubt about that.
But that was 2 steps back.
I've been reluctant to sort of go with they've arrived, this is the new Perth tag, just from a consistency point of view. I'm yet to be fully convinced, and this was, I guess, a reflection of that. And credit to Subiaco as well for fighting it out. It was inaccuracy that came back to bite Perth, but it's just that ability to win these games where they should be winning, and sometimes it does go the other way where they have upset wins, and that shouldn't be disregarded. But Perth, for mine, they need to go that next step on a consistent basis. Of course, you're always going to have bad days, but these are games that they should be winning. I know Subiaco are thereabouts as well, but for Perth, I think if we want to see them go all the way this year, for me, they need a bit more polish to their game.
They certainly do. And in those areas, like consistently racking up those goals, their inaccuracies, as you said, came back to bite them badly. And also the way they were put under pressure by Subiaco and didn't respond accordingly in that last quarter. Think about it. They kicked 2 goals. They kicked 3 behinds as well, but Subiaco just kept piling it on. They got that out of the centre, dominated the clearances, and they were led by McGowan, Mayo, who got also a couple of hit-outs, Gyro, who's on a tour de force of great form in the last month or so. And also up forward, when you have the likes of Borchett getting a couple of goals, Stephen Gyro, he bobbed up with 2 as well to go with his 29. Then you really have got to play all out defensively to try and contain Subiaco's input in front of goal. Perth failed to do that, and Subiaco, to their amazing credit, they stepped up and really got it done. And some of their, unheralded players, Kelman, 21, he stepped up. Marlon Corbett, he's more than just heralded, 22 disposals. And Fraser Rickson, he really stood up, 19 hit-outs to go with his 15 disposals. So it's all starting to come together, isn't it, for Subiaco? Okay, they weren't convincing in the first half, but the second half, they really got it back together.
Yeah, we've often said with Subiaco, it might be a longer term approach. Obviously, they have recruited, but obviously Schofield has just come back to the footy club, part of a longer term strategy. But yeah, this is a real good win and a win that keeps them in the hunt. And Steph Jara, I thought, was one of, if not the best on ground. As you mentioned, 29 disposals, 2 goals. Had good support from the Hickmott brothers, and I think we were saying off air they maybe don't get the plaudits they deserve because they've had that sort of more humble upbringing or. They've come to the forefront of the WAFL competition through, the local pathway. They aren't big name recruits, but they just get better, and the longevity shouldn't be discounted.
For Perth, meanwhile, Taylor had 23 disposals, Byrne had 21. Brendan Parfitt, again, was brilliant, 29 and 10 inside 50s to boot. He linked up so well with Charlie Constable, who had 8 as well. Josh Edwards in the ruck with 22. Davis, playing more on a wing, had 29 disposals. I'd say if you put him on a wing, that frees up the likes of Taylor, Kirk, when he does eventually come back, and Charlie Dean as well. I reckon that frees them up to get a little bit of space down the back line.
Yeah, Davis, he just runs all day, doesn't he? You can put him on a wing and know he'll get to work and uses his left boot to his advantage. So, he more than held his own, but just needed a few more to come with him on the day.
Absolutely. Subiaco holding on by a point in a dramatic finish over there at Sullivan Logistics Stadium. Let's go to the Good Grocer Park, and East Fremantle took on East Perth, and it was a must-win for both teams in their own right. But it was East Perth, thanks to a huge first half, that got it done. 8 goals to 4 in the first half, paving the way for a 22-point victory, 12-11 to 9-7, and East Perth officially putting East Fremantle out of the running for the finals. But East Perth, their first half was something that I've wanted to see for weeks. You know, even without a lot of their experienced players, they're still without Amajuri, they're still without Brayshaw, but they got back right, and they got back Mazzando. That was a huge boost that in the end paved the way for the victory.
Yeah, we'll speak about 8-point games. I think this was one of them because East Fremantle, they, as you said, probably shot themselves in the foot, but credit to East Perth, a winning game that they needed to, and it was a bit of a double-edged sword because I guess they didn't score a goal in the last quarter, so often, that comes to memory, but nonetheless, the bulk of the damage was done early, and lucky that was enough for them to hold off a fast-finishing East Fremantle side.
Yeah, absolutely. East Fremantle, that last quarter really showed some glimmers, but the game was all but won in the third quarter. After East Perth got another 4 goals in the third term, and they were led by the ongoing presence of Sutar in midfield. Liam Tedesco, wasn't he on fire on Saturday? I think that's his best game for the year. 13 marks, 26, and had 2 goals. He was involved in almost every contest. He showed Ross McQueen that he can step up to the plate when the chips are down.
Yeah, I'm not sure there'll be an East Perth player or player for the WAFL competition as a whole that you would want to look in the eye and say, go to work and go to war for me more than Liam Tedesco. He just speaks ultimate clubman, spiritual player. His actions do the talking, can play a variety of positions as well. So, he's really versatile and he certainly left nothing out there on the day.
And he also got back Kobe Burgiel as well, and what a valuable return that was with 21 disposals. Van Diemen in the middle had 23 as well. East Fremantle, Erdley, he tried his heart out with 28. He had 10 marks to boot. John O'Marsh in the full back line had 20, and Cleaver 23 and had 2 goals. That was a better game from him given, his team was getting thrown around. Robinson, he got 1. Smart also played out of a wing a little bit, but he kicked 3 goals when drifting back up to the forward line. But they just didn't have a lot of support, and their inability to find effective targets in the forward 50 also let down Bill Monaghan big time.
Yeah, they got one back on East Fremantle, didn't they? East Perth, you cast your mind back earlier in there where East Fremantle, and it was almost a bit of a statement win earlier in the year that East Fremantle could be thereabouts when, Smart was on fire, and he still was kicking 3 goals. But, I think the experienced team and the team that we sort of expected more of won on the day this time around. And East Perth, still obviously similar to Perth, not overly convincing, but nonetheless, you just got to stay in the hunt, which is what they've done.
And they certainly are staying in the hunt for that spot in the 5, but they could be secretly looking ahead to that big game in round 20 for the spot in the 5 up for grabs. But a good win nonetheless by 22 points over East Fremantle. And then we go to the final game yesterday down at Mineral Resources Park. Gee, this was a turn-up, wasn't it? The West Coast Eagles getting their second win over South Fremantle in 2 years. And this time it was on the Eagles' home turf. 15-12, 102 to 11-17, 83. South Fremantle, their inaccuracy, like Perth, coming back to bite them in the bum badly. And just the way they were second to the football in midfield after quarter time just was very ordinary. That's un-South Fremantle-like, but credit to the West Coast Eagles. Man, they were absolutely magnificent. Flynn, 35, hit-outs to go with his 20 disposals. Hall, brilliant in midfield. Grego played more in the middle compared to his usual role at half-back. He had 28 disposals. Lindsay and Hewitt were both magnificent, and in the forward line, they had a very good spread of goal kickers that really contributed to a very strong Eagles win. I think this was one of their better wins of the season, to go up against the reigning premiers and beat them the way they did. Really is a big statement for the Eagles.
Yeah, good win at home for them, wasn't it? And I think, a lot of guys putting their hands up for senior selection, obviously off the back of what happened with Eagles in the Richmond game. But yeah,
at least the Eagles waffle side can kick goals.
Absolutely, and I think Finn McRae was another one. He was probably one of, if not best on ground. So he could be in the frame for a club debut at AFL level. But yeah, guys are playing obviously for contracts and whatnot at this time of year. So it was a fast finishing Bulldog side. You think, why couldn't have they done that, what they did in the last quarter for the duration of the game? But obviously when you need to go, sometimes that brings out the best in you. And Isaiah Winder threatened late with a couple, but it was the likes of Hewitt and always kicking a goal late just to hold them off and get a victory in the end. So it was pretty convincing. In the end, what was it, a 19-point win in the end?
The way they went about it, it was very convincing. First to the football, threw the physicality around, and they were able to control the contest on their terms right from the outset, and just their pace up the ground as well. And when the first goal was scored inside the first minute, I just had a feeling South Fremantle were going to be in trouble. Even though I tipped them to win, West Coast still had a lot more. They had a lot more class. They have a lot more system, especially down the forward line compared to South Fremantle for the first 3 quarters. Think about it, the margin was an even 6 at 3-quarter time, and South Fremantle lost their way. Credit to them for their finish, with Winder bobbing up, as you said, with a couple of goals. Bologna, he was back in the side, which is a good sign. Jacob Wan played well down the back line, and Cameron Maynard, serviceable debut, his first game. He's going to get better as the weeks go on, and maybe they could bring him in for that game coming up against East Perth, and it's a must-win for them, and we'll have that preview on Thursday night here on Around the Waffle, just to give him a little bit of a spring in his step, just to give him a little bit more confidence. He's only a young kid, but he's got plenty of mileage ahead of him.
Yeah, draft prospect and backflip specialist. Interesting to see what they do, because obviously Colts and League are both in the frame for finals as well, so they want to blood him, but they obviously want him to be there at the pointy end in his Colts season before hopefully he puts his name up in AFL lights. But South Fremantle, yeah, I get the feeling, and obviously they want to win every game from here. They do want to qualify. That's not safe just yet. I get the feeling they're not necessarily holding back, but they do strike me as the team that they could get in the finals, and then all they have to do is make it, and then they almost set themselves for a new year. Obviously, they could have pushed Matty Parker back potentially if they needed to. So continuity's been a bit of an issue. Obviously, a couple of players travelling and whatnot and injuries. But South Fremantle strike me as the type that they're not going to get caught up in the loss too much. And I think they're going to back themselves. That you don't want to come against the reigning premiers in a September game.
You'll need to back yourself as if you're South Fremantle. You've got to be taking those risks if you're Craig White. And you've got to take every chance. 3 rounds to go. And as we go to the ladder following round 17, the double chance is at risk of slipping away. Because as you see, Peel Thunder, their 2 wins clear at the top. Claremont second. Perth and South Fremantle tied on 36 points. But thanks to the Bulldogs' loss, Perth remain in 3rd place. Subiaco are again behind ahead of East Perth on percentage and along with West Coast. And then Swan Districts, East Fremantle and West Perth rounding out the bottom half of the ladder. And so the double chance could slip away if they don't get going here, South Fremantle. But you never know in the final 3 rounds of competition. Let's go to the votes. Round 17. I gave 1 vote to Stefan Gyro. He has been on a tour de force over the last month or so, not just in midfield, but in front of goal as well. His versatility is what really stood out in that win over Perth on the weekend. 2 votes, Toby Wan. Wasn't he impressive? Of course, drafted as an NGA prospect, as you said, and is really proving why he deserves a shot at the next level. His work in the midfield and a nice goal as well to boot really capped off a great day. 2 votes for him. 3 votes, Elijah Hewitt of the West Coast Eagles. He goes a bit unsung for me, especially as a key forward, but he was a small forward that could really bring a little bit more spark inside that forward 50 to go along with the likes of Owies and, of course, your other goal kickers in Gross and Malachi Champion. I thought Hewitt just had a little bit more in that game on Sunday, so well done to him. 4 votes. Liam Tedesco. He was everywhere, and you summed it up so well. He is a great club man over there at East Perth, and he says, you want to go to war for your team? He'll do that, and he did that, and how, in that game against East Fremantle. But the top gun for me this week from Claremont, Sam Van Rooyen. He has been an absolute sensation in that forward line, and it goes back to the point we made about having to reorganise that forward line in place of Jaden Hunter. He's the perfect foil in a way because he's a tall forward, great athletic ability, superb marking prowess, and can kick big bags of goals. And that was no exception against West Perth on the weekend. So Van Rooyen's the top gun for this week.
Nice to see a key forward slip in there and at the top. So, yeah, he's part of a now famous footballing family. Obviously, Benji, his younger brother's All-Australian recently in the under-18s, and we know what Jacob's doing at Melbourne. So, yeah, it's a scary proposition. He's only just coming into his prime, if not that at the moment.
He's only just getting started, let me tell you, Rothies. We go to the leaderboard. Not much change in the top 10, except for 10th itself. Stephen Gyro's back into the 10, but Charlie Dean still holds the lead, 2 votes ahead of Bailey Rogers. Jack Cleaver a further 2 votes behind, and Angus Scott making up the top 4. Brendan Parfitt's in 5th. Lockie Tardrew and Hugh Davies of Peel Thunder 6th and 7th. Jarvis Pena on 8th. Jeremy Sharp in 9th place. So that is the player of the year after 17 rounds of competition. When we come back, We'll have Jason Burton, the Swan Districts coach, joining us here on Around the WAFL to talk about their win yesterday over the Perth Demons in the final round of WAFLW and a look ahead to that big second semi-final against the reigning premiers Claremont. It's all thanks to Sullivan Logistics, Grants Car Stereo, District Promotions and Front Row Screen Sport. And you're checking us out on YouTube and where you get your podcast. Back after this.
Take it from me, great things happen at the WAFL.
Valentine rides and goals.
With free entry for kids, future stars on the ground, and a kick to kick at every break. The WAFL is where footy memories start and legends are made. Follow the WAFL on socials or get to a game.
Hey Siri, how to connect Bluetooth to Mac truck?
Sullivan 2, what's your position?
Just a midfielder, mate. On your left. Oh, come on, get out of the way.
Car Stereo Morley, proudly supplying and fitting quality car stereos for over 15 years, selling top name brands like Alpine, Focal, Rockford Fosgate. From a simple upgrade to complete custom systems, stop in and see Grant and the boys at 61 Russell Street, Morley, or visit us online at carstereo.com.au.
Back with us here on Around the WAFL. Paul Persick and Ethan Roth with you on your Monday night recap show. We're going to recap the WAFLW action very shortly, the final round of competition. And in just a moment, we're going to have a chat with Jason Burton, the Swan Districts coach, after their win against Perth. But first off, Rothy, Colts report, back with a full contingent of action, round 17, and some interesting results.
Yeah, dominant 100-plus result, one of them. Before that, though, Claremont and West Perth did battle. 22-point win for Claremont. Not too surprising, you wouldn't have thought, for the three-time reigning premier. But, 22 points in the end. And inaccuracy sort of cost West Perth, kicking 7 goals, 14. That 100-plus point win to East Fremantle, I speak of, 139-19.
Good heavens.
Yeah, it would have hurt for East Perth. But, yeah, they had a stack of contributors. Jake Taylor was one that stood out on his debut, 2 goals, and the best part of 20 disposals coming off a state 16s All-Australian as well. So, nice time for him to make his Colts debut. It was a 6-point thriller, so opposite end of that at Sullivan Logistics Stadium, 62-56. Subi getting up and going a couple goals clear into the 5, and Thatcher Simmons was the top gun really across the competition. He had 26 disposals, 5 goals, and he's done it for a lot of weeks now. So he's probably one of the most informed players in the competition. And then rounding out in an afternoon game, was on the call for this one, Swan Districts 22-point win over over Peel Thunder. That pretty much shoots the lights out for Peel Thunder's finals hopes. Still a little glimmer of hope for Swan Districts, and they had 10 inclusions, including 4 debutants, so they sung the song loud and proud after that one.
No doubt about it. What about the coming week, round 18? Critical round, this one.
Yeah, Perth and Peel, not the most high-stakes game, but should be a good one nonetheless. I think it could go either way. I think Perth at home, though, would be wanting to come away with a victory, so I'll tip them. Swans and Claremont, obviously, the power of Claremont coming up against Swan Districts. Claremont should get the job done there. South Fremantle and East Perth as well. South Fremantle would go in red-hot favourites, and then West Perth and East Fremantle closing out under lights. Been a fair few night games to West Perth. I think should be a cracker, though. I think East Fremantle, though, should come away with the chockies if they want to be a genuine contender, so I'll back them in away from home.
That game at night is going to be a good one. Can't wait to call that one on the WAFL YouTube channel from 6 o'clock. o'clock. It's going to be a great way to end the Saturday with a critical clash. Now we go over to the WAFLW. Round 18 has come and gone, and the final series is here. And Swan Districts, they led the charge throughout the home and away season. They capped it off in style with a big win over Perth, and their coach, he's already making the plans for the team heading into the finals campaign with Sunday, the next stop, and Steel Blue Oval, the major semi-final against Claremont. And Jason's good enough to join us here on Around the Waffle to talk about what was a very good win against the Demons. Hello, Jason.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Going very well. Great to have you on the show. It was a win that obviously you did what you had to do against Perth, and really show that your side was the number one heading into the finals. And looking ahead now, Claremont major semi-final. Obviously, it's going to be a big week at the club, but the 1 week at a time notion really does get amplified a little bit, doesn't it? Now that it's finals time.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and I think we're pretty blessed that we got to take on Perth, who, if you look at all the numbers and things, were probably the form team of the last month or so in the competition, and made a real run at the finals themselves. So they had a lot to play for. We treated it like a final, and we wanted to be, mature enough to handle the pressure of it and know that they were going to come pretty hard. And we were pleased with what we were able to do as a team. And it wasn't all our way. They are a very good outfit, Perth, and are going to have a good future. But pretty happy with that as a lead-in, I suppose, to a final this week against Claremont, who we know pretty well. And, it's a big challenge and one that we're excited about.
And Jason, you tried a few things in the last quarter, giving a bit of midfield time to some of the young players. But talk us about the decision to not rest players for this game, because obviously you go straight into the finals. There's no break into this week. So with the minor premiership already locked away, were you tempted at all to rest players with that in mind?
No, not at all. Like I say, we actually ramped it up and wanted to treat this game like a final. We actually had a bye 2 weeks ago, so that gave us the chance to freshen everybody up and then sort of make our run now into the end of August, hopefully, and we'd last another 3 weeks. So, yeah, there was not any thought of resting players. Yeah, we were able to manage some late in the game on the weekend, and that's more just injury prevention more than anything. But the girls are really keen to have a real crack at it.
Absolutely, and it showed in the numbers as well, and the way your side won. Not just Jamie Henry, who had another top game with 35 disposals. Gemma Sly got some good time in the middle with 25, and Lauren Quaife in the ruck just continues to stand out in the ruck. And Luca Davis had 20 disposals, Jess Cox with 22. I think that ramped up intensity really is the ideal tune-up for a final, especially now that you've got a side in Claremont whose midfield is almost just as intense as far as the way they get the ball out of the centre. And I think might have been the ideal preparation, to get a feel of what that semi-final is going to be.
Yeah, definitely. The midfield of Claremont is, and they've proven it over a number of years now, is really, really strong, and they're going to own the ball. No one has more possessions than Claremont. So we're going to have to work pretty hard to win it off them, or at least limit what they can do with the ball. So we back our group in, and it is, I think we all know what Jamie does and can win the ball. But there's a few around her, like Luca, who's, really improved. She's still so young herself. But it's her intensity and power that's really impressive. And it's taking the competition and our team, especially, to another level. And then you add some composure like Jess Cox around the contest, then it gives us a pretty good balance in there. So, yeah, it'll be interesting this week and something that we'll put a heap of focus into. We've got to win the ball, and they're going to be really important in that.
And you last obviously met in the finals last year in the decider. One apiece this year in terms of win-loss against them. Round 1, the win, and then round 8, the loss. So how much do you sort of dive into the recent appearances against them, or do you sort of a little bit, but obviously more focus forward and new occasion, and not dive too much into the past, both positive and negative?
Yeah, well, I think we look at it a little bit, but both teams are going to be a bit different, certainly from the grand final. And then the mid-year game, obviously the state 18s are away, so you sort of aren't at your full strength, I guess, and we've got 4 or 5 of those playing for us, and I know they've got 3 or 4 as well. So we really looked at the form of the last month or so, and we sort of ride that in now, so can't rely on what happened in round 1, even though we had a really good result. There's a different feeling to it, different players, different personnel, so yeah, it's a new challenge, and we just got to got to take it head on.
All systems go for this Sunday. Congrats on the win yesterday and all the best for the second semi-final against the reigning premiers. Thanks, Jason, for joining us.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
That was Jason Burton, the Swan District's WAFLW coach, joining us here on Around the Waffle as we get to the final round of home and away action, final round recap of the home and away season in the WAFLW. And we'll start off at Revo Fitness Stadium, Rothy, Claremont and South Fremantle, and this was a toweling that Claremont handed the Bulldogs, 9-6-60 to 2-4-16. And you would feel that South Fremantle would be a bit luckier, you would say, to make the 4. But, let's take nothing away from Claremont. I mean, that was a typical Claremont-controlled game, and especially if you have Harkin dominating, Lucy Gilby getting in amongst it, and Hayley Bullis, who has not stepped onto a WAFLW field for almost 5 years prior to this season, going out and having 34 disposals and 13 tackles. She still plays like a machine.
Yeah, and those are some of the changes that I guess Jason was talking about on the opposition side of things. Hayley Bullis obviously wasn't there earlier in the year, and Lucy Gilby, it was a debut. To have 21 disposals on WAFLW debut as a teenager, that's outstanding. So, she should hopefully hold her place. There's going to be some tough selection calls for Jack Schwartz, but, they really got on top. And South Fremantle, obviously, they deserve their final spot. There's no discounting that. I think a lot of the bulk of the work did early, and, it doesn't come back to bite them, but obviously it just highlights differences between these two sides.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a gap there between the likes of Claremont and South Fremantle. Claremont have been regular campaigners. South Fremantle missed the finals last year, but under Pierre Folletti, second year, and with the addition of Ash Gomes, who only got the 10 disposals, they're starting to be a very good side. They're starting to be a very good side, and this obviously loss is not going to be the ideal form going into the finals, but it's a different kettle of fish. Gomes 10 disposals, Croner with 18, Newsom with 35 hitouts in the ruck. She was brilliant, held her own against the in-form Matilda Husband, and Lauren Vecchio with 10 disposals was a bit quiet by her lofty standards. And South Fremantle, obviously, they'll want to learn from that, because if they make Claremont again in the preliminary final next week, then they'll have a lot of lessons from this game yesterday in order to take that onto the preliminary final if they do make it that far.
Yeah, and obviously that recency is going to help them. I think, they shut down Kiana Lee. Claremont obviously were highlighted in the last couple of weeks. She's adapted so well at such short notice to the WAFLW competition, but didn't score a goal. You obviously can't put too heavy reliance on her, but she's going to be key for South Fremantle's finals hopes, and couldn't hit the scoreboard, unfortunately, on the weekend, but obviously they blow a chance to host an elimination final as well. They couldn't have finished higher than third, South Fremantle, but obviously this loss means they're going to have to go to the Good Grosvenor Park. I don't think home ground advantage is too much of a worry in this competition.
It never is.
Travel, but
it never will be.
Having said that, sometimes finishing fourth is the best thing. You almost have that sense of freedom of nothing to lose because you are the lowest ranked finals team.
Absolutely. We saw Swan Districts with that last year going to the grand final from third spot, so it's going to be very interesting to see where they go, South Fremantle, from here. But the Tigers, no real surprise in the end. They got home in dominating style, and they go into that major semi-final chock full of confidence. What about the game at Steel Blue Oval yesterday? Swan Districts defeating Perth quite soundly by 21 points, ending the Demons' dream of a finals run in their second year. But Swan Districts, it was simple. They did what they had to do, treat it like a final. And I said this on Thursday in the preview show when I was solo, Swan Districts shouldn't take their chance of resting players. And you echoed that point so well when chatting about this game. By the way, Swan District 7-4-46 to 3-7-25 over Perth, and they treated that game like a final because they had to, because we go straight into finals, no buys, none of that rubbish.
Yeah, and I think obviously in an ideal world they will have a bye because they'll win the next final. So I think that might have been part of a little bit of the thinking as well. That if they can get over the line. But yeah, Swan Districts being on the call for this one, I think it just always felt like they were in a commanding position. It was a very slow start. They kicked a goal to none in the first quarter. Last time these sides met as well, Perth kicked 1 goal 11 against Swan Districts back in round 9, or round 5, I should say, and won by 14 points, Swan Districts. So they didn't really learn from that early days, did Perth, but Gemma Dix scored a goal on 3-quarter time, and then kicked another early stages of the last quarter. You thought, hang on, what could be? But obviously time got the better of them in the end. Natalie House kicked the goal late, which was impressive.
And another game without Isabella Shannon as well. That came back to bite them. If Shannon was in that side, maybe the result could have been different in hindsight.
Yeah, it's hard because obviously you have her for the whole year and then you don't have her when it really, really counts at the end. I thought Baldwin and Trindade stepped up, also Britton, Smogavic. So and then, Gooch as well. I think, obviously, they didn't make finals, and a lot of people tipped them to make it in year 2, but I think there's positives, and I think they should keep a core group of these players together. They might lose Mia Carhausen to the AFLW draft, but other than that, I don't see them losing too many players, so hopefully it's just building blocks for Steph Watling's side.
And we can say as well that they were the most improved side, coming from 3 wins in their first year to 8 in their second year. That gives Steph Walding a really good program to build on in year 3 in 2027 when they take the field in March. So really good positive steps for Perth, and hopefully they can go on in 2027 and maybe make a top 4 spot. But Swan Districts, Henry, Sly, Hurst, Yarran and Ash Sharp, they did what they had to do. They played their roles to great effect and ultimately won by 21 points to further cap off an amazing home and away season. Then we go to Sullivan Logistics Stadium, the battle of the co-tenants, Subiaco and East Perth, and the Lions ending a disappointing year on a high, winning 10-4, 64-4 to 26, a 38-point win. And Subiaco, well, despite the win, this year is going to be a tale of what might have been.
Yeah, obviously preliminary finals last year and don't make the finals this year, but at least they finished on a positive, and obviously it was the only game which was a dead rubber, if you want to call it that, with no finals implications. But Subiaco still were a class above. Paige Shepherd, 35 disposals. I think she's going to win their best and fairest. I'd be surprised if she didn't. Obviously, support from Steen and also Krista Pajewski, but she's had an outstanding year. I think she's been in the top 3 or 5 midfielders in the competition on a consistent basis.
But where was the support that they should have had all year? The big 3, they were relied upon so heavily. And, Shepherd had a great performance, and I will agree she'll win their best and fairest, but there just wasn't enough consistent support. But in this game, they were able to deliver against a largely young East Perth side.
Yeah, no, we highlighted last week that their game plan, obviously they play so high, so it's their ability to score. But they scored well in this game. Annabelle Johnson being a real find in the back in the back half of the season as a forward, obviously kicked another 4 goals as well. And you might think, well, why didn't they do that earlier? But something to go into 2027 with. It was more out of necessity, not having a true key forward down there. So she kicked another bag of 4.
What about East Perth? Brooke Edwards, she really took it to the Subiaco Rucks in that game. 49 hit-outs to go with her 13 disposals. And despite East Perth having a really disappointing record, only 2 wins from their 16 games, Brooke Edwards really was a great find for East Perth, given that handy experience. And I'll go as to say she might win their best and fairest.
Yeah, a real shining light, wasn't she, in the ruck? And 13 disposals, as you said, on the weekend. Obviously, disappointing year for East Perth. But at least they won a couple of games. You've got to look at it on the positive side. And, they'll probably be happy for a little bit of a break now before next year. Sort of, when you're out of the pecking order for a while, that you're probably just keen for it to be done, but they still played to the very end, even if the scoreboard didn't reflect that.
Can't fault their effort at all, though. Ferns, Greenwood, Pugliese, Thompson, they were all right. You look at Edwards, as we said, and Cara Spryland with 16 disposals, but they're only a young side. They'll go on, they'll further develop, and hopefully they can be a side that could do what Perth did maybe in 2027 and possibly contend for a spot in the 4.
Yeah, that'll be the aim for them, and obviously they might need to do a bit more recruiting, see what's out there as well, and help get another bit of development into the younger players as well.
And we couldn't end the round and the home and away season without a little bit of drama. What about this finish at the Good Grocer Park? East Fremantle, coming from behind from 21 points down to shock West Perth by 3 points, 6-4-40 to 5-7-37, and in the process earned hosting rights for the first semi-final. Gee, this was a win that proved more than handy for East Fremantle.
Well, they seemed down and out, didn't they? And then
they were
obviously
gone.
Calling the Perth game, you thought, well, if Perth can get up here and East Fremantle are going to be knocked out, but wasn't to be. And even if they lost this game, then they still would have gone through. So that shouldn't take away from a really good comeback victory, and one that'll build a bit of belief. Tiani Teku, she's not just a defender, thrown forward, kicked the winning goal as the captain. You couldn't write a better storyline. And
that's a real captain's goal right there.
After all the sort of controversy and doubt that they had over the off-season, for the captain to get them into finals, I think is a really good storyline heading into the first week of finals.
And that's the story of their year when you're looking at it. Under David Eames, first-year coach, all the controversy of the off-season, defying expectations against the odds. They've made it to 3rd place, and it's well-deserved because their young talent have really stepped up. And, when you've got a young side and you've got low expectations, you've got nothing to lose. No expectations. It's that gigantic weight off your shoulders. And they've played that this season, especially at home.
Yeah, they had emerging leaders like Webb in her first year as well. Flynn and Kinane continued to do what they do. And, who would have thought a Derby elimination final? I don't think many people would have saw that coming, particularly after the round 1 thumping that South Fremantle gave them. You thought East Fremantle could be in for a long year here, and obviously they had a 1-point win under lights against South Fremantle as well, so it couldn't be set up better. But as far as this one, great gritty win to come back. And West Perth, little bit of how it sums up their season.
I would agree as a whole. I would agree with that emphatically. They're just not a consistent side. And if I was Steve Chapman and the recruiting staff, I'd need to do a lot of recruiting to find some good, consistent A-grade players because there's not enough there, I'm afraid to say, at West Perth.
Yeah, Lexi Strachan and Kara Zuzalewski, they're probably going to get picked up. Kara Zuzalewski is looking like a certain top 10 or if not top 5 pick in the draft. So
Definite
that'll be
top 10.
Her last game in Falcons colours. Lexi Strachan, you would imagine so as well. But Ellie McAvoy, I think, has been a really good success story. Wouldn't be surprised if she wins their best and fairest. Had the 20 disposals again. Arabella Nelson as well, state 16s and 18s player as well, coming through the ranks. But yes, West Perth, I thought, after last year where they just missed out, they've almost taken a step backwards, probably with a better list as well this year.
Yeah, this year they had a better list, I will agree. They have more experience, they have more A-grade players, but they're not getting the results. And something needs to be done in the off-season if they're to get back into the four. But credit to East Fremantle. I mean, the way they came from behind, they were dead and buried, hosting final, a distant memory, but they came back and won it by 3 points. A deserved victory for East Fremantle at the Good Grocer Park. And that ends the home and away season. After 18 rounds of competition, the ladder finishes up like this. Swan District's minor premiers for 2026, a game ahead of Claremont. East Fremantle and South Fremantle make up the four. Missing out by a game is Perth, but big improvements for them. Subiaco, a disappointing year, same case for West Perth. And then East Perth and Peel Thunder making up the bottom end of the ladder. And so the four looks like this in the finals for next week. Swan District's in Claremont at Steel Blue Oval in the second semi-final. That's at 11:45 in the morning. And then at the Good Grocer Park, the People's semi-final, the Derby, East Fremantle and South Fremantle at 12:10 on Sunday afternoon. That one is going to be an absolute rip snorter, make no mistake about it. And it's a bit bittersweet, Rothy, for the final time this year, your Player of the Year votes.
Yeah, it's obviously been a really consistent part of the show and something that I've really enjoyed. I was just going to ask you as well, before we get to the votes, who would you say out of the teams that missed the finals, who's one team you think will make the finals next year out of the teams that missed out?
Perth. Right off the bat, Perth. If they can maintain their core lineup and continue building on this very good season, because you've got to lay a foundation for a finals campaign. I think this season, although they missed the four, this should lay the foundation for an even bigger 2027. And with Steph Walding, a coach of premiership experience there and a good team staff behind her, I reckon Perth will go in for a big charge in 2027 to the four.
Yeah, Perth for me as well, but I think Subiaco and West Perth are going to be the teams that are looking to bounce back in an instant. But as far as the votes go, get into it. One vote for Swan Districts. This player's been very underrated for the whole year, and I think she's really coming into her own. Doesn't get the recognition that she deserves, but strikes me as a player that they really rate inside the four walls, and that's Gemma Sly. Her marking game is gone to another level, over 20 disposals, and she's going to be a really important part of the finals campaign. I think she definitely has traits to go to the next level. 2 votes, the captain for East Fremantle, another big finals campaign looms for her, but kicked the winning goal.
How fitting.
Unlikely player to kick a goal to win the game, but she led the way. Tiani Tika with 2 votes. Thought she was brilliant all day down back and then did it when it mattered most in front of the big sticks. 3 votes. Annabelle Johnson features yet again. 4 goals in that win over East Perth. And came to the club as a defender off the back of time at Geelong and West Coast, but I think she's added a lot of strings to her bow. 4 votes. Hayley Bullis for Claremont. 34 disposals, 2 goals after numerous years out of the competition, but you wouldn't know it by the way she's been able to play in recent weeks. Headlined by that game against South Freo. And then fitting, not obviously because of the year, I'm not just doing it because of that, but obviously the year that she's had adds to her reputation, but she did it again. 35 disposals, 2 goals, added goal kicking to her repertoire this year. Not necessarily a weakness, but she's taking that to another level. Jamie Henry with 5 votes.
It just had to be.
She gets to 49, and I was saying to you off air, she gets to the amount of votes that she almost averages disposals a game, being 49. Not quite, but she's got 49 a couple times this year. So she takes out the top gun yet again.
I don't think anybody could argue with that. I think that's the perfect way for our Player of the Year to end the season with 5 votes. Great selections from you, Rothy. And the final leaderboard looks like this. Jamie Henry, the winner, in dominant style, and that's saying something. On 49 votes, Isabella Shannon, who didn't play last weekend, finishes runner-up with 17, just ahead of Paige Shepherd and the Claremont pair of Juliet Kelly and Jamie Harkin. And making up the top 10, Talia Mulder of South Fremantle, Crystal Petrevsky of Subiaco, Kiana Lee with some big form got into the top 10, and Annabelle Johnson and Chloe Wrigley make up the top 10 after an amazing 18 rounds of competition. And once again, Jamie Henry, congratulations to you, our WAFLW Player of the Year. And that was a fine way to end it, wasn't it?
Yeah, she's obviously got bigger fish to fry, but it's going to be interesting to see how that leaderboard stacks up against the Dara Kerr medal, but would be very surprised if Jamie Henry doesn't have one more medal around her neck, and she'll be hoping it's multiple in more facets than one.
I'm just going to go on record on that and say if she does not win the Dara Kerr medal, there is every chance my head will be dislodged from its neck because I will absolutely lose the plot. And how the hell she didn't get drafted onto the AFLW list, AFL clubs, mate, you could have done better than selecting 3 Woodville West Torrens players because we've got the best in the land. Heed that warning or I'll have to curse you. Anyway, moving on.
Congrats as well to Isabella Shannon and Christopher Petrevsky for rounding out the podium as well. I think they'll be right in the conversation for the respective sides' BNFs.
Absolutely, I would agree with that as well. Before we wrap up, last year, we had a very successful Around the Waffle breakdown in the men's finals and, of course, in the state games earlier this year. Well, that is back for the entire WAFLW Finals Series. We'll have half-time and full-time wrap-ups of each of the finals. And, of course, on the weekend, we'll have 2 of them at Steelball Overland at the Good Grocer Park. Gives a chance for the fans to stay right up to date as it happens, Rothy, with all the WAFLW Finals action starting on Sunday and going all the way to the grand final.
Yeah, it's a great concept and gives obviously fans an opportunity to delve right into the moments and the results as they happen there. So keep an eye and looking forward to seeing the breakdowns once again come to fruition.
And of course, you can check it out on the socials, on Facebook and on Instagram across the entire WAFLW Finals campaign, including Grand Final Day on August 23rd at Fremantle Oval. Rothy, great job by you as always. Before I let you go, who are your tips for the finals this weekend in the WAFLW?
Oh, it's a tough one, isn't it? I'm going to back Swan Districts to go the easier draw through to the grand final. Obviously, tip them for the premiership, but should be a cracker. And then, yeah, the Derby, you can go really one or two ways. I think South Fremantle might get the job done, but hopefully for 2 cracking finals. And if the final series is anything to go right from last year, 4 points combined margin, then we're going to be in for a hell of a next 3 weeks.
And you might need a doctor if it gets ever closer than what we had last year. But good luck to you this weekend. All the very best, and we'll see you back here next Monday.
Thank you, Paul. Looking forward to seeing who the preliminary finalists are.
It's going to be a ripper, no doubt about that. And listeners and viewers, we appreciate your company as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thursday, massive preview show, not least of which led by the WAFLW Finals in the first week. It's going to be a real cracker. You can check us out on Facebook and Instagram for all your social content. Have a great week. We'll see you on Thursday night for a huge preview.